The game started. We went up 1-0 early. I remember looking up at the clock, and there was like 10 minutes left in the first period. And as I was watching the game, I heard a pop, pop, and I thought they were balloons. I thought they were big balloons, and the noise was right in front of me. So when I looked, I heard another pop and recognized there weren't any balloons there, and thought that there's something wrong. I didn't know if it was gunshots. So when I peeked my head around to look around, I didn't see the shooter, but I saw the pistol being directed at the people in the second row. And at that point in time, as soon as I saw the pistol, my wife was sitting next to me with some friends, and we didn't even look at each other, and I just said, "Run, run," which it was great that she listened, and the friends started going. And then I kind of waited, a half a second, because I needed a clear path and people were moving. And as soon as I saw the clear path, I got on the third level of step, and he was on the 1.5, and I jumped across and went for the gun. I wanted to grab the gun. And what happened was my hand got caught in the sliding chamber. He shot, and then my hand got caught, and I was holding him down with my body. And you could see him trying to move his finger to move it, but my hand was in the gun. So it didn't work. So I was able to peel his hand out. And then what I did was I was coming, and he was strong, and he kind of pushed me off of him, which I rolled off into the bleachers. He stood up, and I believe there was 3 gentlemen. One gentleman's name is Bob, who put him in kind of choked him from behind, and then these other guys, and he kind of swung them off, but he fell backwards. So he landed on his back between the bleachers. So literally I'm looking down and he's looking up, and we were staring right at each other. And at that point in time, I wanted to come down and put my knee or something to put it on his body to try to hold him down. And I saw him reach his hand in his jacket pocket, his left hand. And I was holding the gun. I didn't have it in a position for it, but I was holding the gun. And next thing you know, he pulled out a second gun that looked exactly like the one I was holding. And that was the point where I was surprised. I didn't really recognize it. But as he took that gun out, you could see this. He had a worrisome, concerned look on his face. And as I'm looking at him, I'm thinking, and it was fast, but he took it out of his pocket, and he just put the gun in his mouth and shot himself.
I can't even imagine what that was like for you and for everyone involved. I mean, that's you. People are saying you saved lives, and that you're a hero. And not everybody, when there's something like that happening, will run towards the shooter or take action. What made you do that? Why did you do that?
I don't have a great answer for this. I really don't. It was the first concern when I saw the gun was my wife. Go, go. And then in my peripheral vision, I saw her running, and the whole focus at that point was the gun. It was just get the gun. And it wasn't get the shooter. I needed to get the gun, or that was my focus, get the gun out of his hands. And then, that was step 2. And step 3 was, once we went through it and he shot himself, the next step was looking at the people who had been shot, and recognizing who was still with us. And there was a gentleman that was performing CPR on somebody. And it was just it was chaos. It was just chaos at that point.
Obviously, there's so much going on at that point. I mean, people ran. People are still figuring out what just happened. I'd imagine, and you're kind of in the midst of this. You looked this person in the eyes and had that confrontation with them. What are you thinking in these moments as you're making eye contact?
I was going to get the gun away from him. I was going to make sure that I took the gun away, and then the next step would have, subdue him or hold him down to the best I can. And there was others around at that point, so that was going to be that in my mind. I think that would have been my thought. And then after he shot himself, The next part was the people that were still with us. It was staying there at that point. And then at that point, when the police came in, which they were there very quickly, 2-3 minutes, and then the SWAT team came in within 2 or 3 minutes from them. Once that settled down, the next thing was I just wanted to let my wife know I was okay.
What was that first conversation like with your wife?
Well, it's interesting. So so after they found out that, my hand was bleeding, there was a big chunk of skin missing and the whole thing. So the police officers, the gentleman who was in charge, basically isolated me with another officer and said, keep Michael over here, keep him away from everybody else. I asked the police officer, I said, I think it's important that I let my wife know I'm okay. And he was great. He asked the person in charge if I could go outside, and the two officers escorted me outside. And next thing you know, my wife's running underneath the yellow barricade tape and kind of jumped on me. And her first words is, "Honey, I don't know if to be proud of you or be upset with you that you put yourself in that kind of risk."
Would you do it again?
You're the first person to ask me. Yeah, I think I would. Depending on who I'm with, the situation where it is. But if my family is safe and there's a live shooter, and if I felt that I could assist, I think it's almost instinctual that, yeah, I think that I did it once. I think, before you ever do it, you're not sure, but it was just a step process in my mind. So, yeah, I'd do it again.
And it sounds like there were other heroes as well. People are calling you a hero, and there's other people. You said maybe 3 other guys. One of them might be named Bob. Were helping to subdue this gunman. Have you spoken with them since? Have you been in contact?
No, I haven't. I don't know who the other 2 people were, to be honest with you. Our friend knows Bob and Marianne well. So there will be a time that I'm going to ask him to get a cup of coffee and kind of share with me what he saw. Because he had a different perspective. So though, I jumped on the guy first, Bob came down with me. Once that guy came down, Bob jumped in. And, and at that point, the shooter had a second gun. So those gentlemen, if they didn't jump in, could have been a different ending for sure.
What has it been like these past more than 24 hours now? With you come home, you kind of take in what happened. Have you been able to fully process what's happened?
No, I think there's a process that you have to go through on this. I'm fortunate enough to know some people in the police, fire, DEA, and they all reached out to me and said there's going to be a process that you're going to go through. Last night was interesting where my son, we were supposed to go on some college visits and the weather wasn't good in the Carolinas a couple weeks back. So we reset it for this week. And I told him, I said, I don't think we should go tomorrow. I said, there's a lot going on right now. And he was disappointed, but he was great about it. He was fine. We'll figure it out. And then I was sitting on the sofa by myself and I was sitting with my chocolate lab. And I thought to myself, why am I going to let this man take away from me? Why am I going to change my plans? This is my son's big step in life. I'm part of the ride. I'm blessed to be part of that ride. And why would I let him interrupt that? Why would I let him take that away? And I decided that I told him that we're leaving. We're leaving tomorrow. And at that time, I kind of went outside and thought about it, that I made a decision that I'm not going to allow that shooter to be in my mind share. I'm not going to allow him to participate in my head. And he's already done so much hurt already that I just felt that I don't want to participate in this.
I'm sure you've seen people are calling you a hero. People are really amazed at what you did, whether it was instinct, whether whatever kicked in you, you know. And do you consider yourself a hero?
No, I really don't. And I'll tell you why, because it really felt like um, what I saw what the police did, fire, paramedics, hospital last night. I have such a high level of appreciation of what they do every day. And as I was sitting at the hospital last night, I recognized, you know, I have heroes in my life, but these should be our heroes. But I did get an interesting phone call from the Pawtucket detective this morning. And he said, Mr. Black, again, I just want to thank you for what you did yesterday. And I said, yes, sir. And he said, we were interviewing the daughter yesterday, and she has a belief on what happened. As the shooter was coming down, he was shooting one person, the next, the next. And she said he was looking at me. I was going to be next. And she told the police officer, until this guy in a black jacket tackled him and took the gun away, I'm sure he would have killed me. And that changed my perspective a little bit of appreciating that, I kind of changed. I possibly might have changed the ending of this. I kind of felt, my actions were warranted at that point, that I could, not just me, but us, to just get the shooting stopped. There were kids there, the grandparents. I mean, it was packed. It was packed.